Welcome, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting, the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, to order. We usually start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I guess we will use the flag over Dr. Purcell's shoulder if you need something to focus on. Oh, never mind. There it is on your screen. So if you will join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Dr. Purcell, if you will do our roll call, please. You'll need to unmute there. All right. Dr. Purcell, if you get our roll call going.
Yes, sir. Charles Sanders.
Here.
Charles Bunton.
Here.
Ann Sermon.
Here.
Norman Crow.
Here.
Miranda Frost.
Here.
Timothy Guyan.
Here.
Paul Kennedy.
Here.
Amy Price.
Here.
Larry Turner.
Here.
Stan Pilot.
Here.
Stan Nelson.
Here.
Rod Scott. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Outstanding. All right. All of you have received a copy of the agenda. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, amendments, questions? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 And all opposed by like sign. And the agenda is approved. Next up, you've had an opportunity to review the minutes from the June 12th meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve those as presented.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, I have a motion, have a second. Any further questions or amendments? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed by like sign. And minutes are approved.
Okay, Commissioner Sanders,
Yes, ma'am.
who seconded that? I got the first one, Norman. Who was the second?
That was
time today at your leisure.
That's Paul Kennedy.
Okay,
And Norman is going to be making all our motions, and I'm going to get Paul to just handle all the seconds.
okay, thank you.
Where our masters will be
And if
hopefully approved, period.
I guess if folks can, if you're not speaking in the meeting, if you can kind of mute your microphone. We're at the chairman's report now. It is my pleasure to welcome two new members that we have with us today. First is Paul Kennedy. Paul is the president of the Walker Area Community Foundation. He earned a degree in forestry from North Carolina State University and is a member of the Alabama Association of Resource Conservation and Development Hall of Fame. And he is a past recipient of the Distinguished Service Award from the Alabama Historical Commission. And Paul's also a man I consider a friend. I've known Paul for quite some time. And so I'm pleased that he'll be here many, many years after I'm not. And then Ann Forbes Sermon is the executive director of the Mobile Bar Association. She is a graduate of the University of South Alabama. She serves as a mentor for Big Brothers and Big Sisters. She's a board advisor for the Junior League of Mobile and is a 2007 graduate of Leadership Mobile. So commissioners, welcome. I wish we were able to be with you in person to welcome you, but look forward to the work that you get to do. I hope that you find it to be as rewarding and as encouraging as it's been for me during my tenure here. Next up is the election of officers. In our last meeting, I appointed a nominating committee, and so I'll recognize Stan Pilot, who will bring that nominating committee report. Stan, you got the floor.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Sanders. At this time, the nominating committee and myself personally would just like to thank Chairman Sanders for his his leadership and his dedication as chairman over the last few years. But more than that, just Chairman, your service to the commission over the last several long years. I know you're not rotating off the board just yet. You still have another year after this year. And we look forward to working with you another year, but we also just wanted to take a minute and thank you for all you've done for the commission. So thank you very much. At this time, we are going to put forth the recommendation of a new commissioner, and that is Commissioner Charles Bunton as the new chairman of AIC. And also, we're also honored to make the recommendation for Commissioner Miranda Bolden Frost as the vice chair. So Chairman Sanders, I put those before the board for our commission for the vote.
Great. Thank you very much. I've had the pleasure of serving on committees with both of these members, and I'm tickled. I think they'll do outstanding work as they have continued to do all the way up to this time. And so the commission is certainly in excellent hands going forward for the next several years. Are there any other nominations that anybody else wishes to put forward to be either chairman or vice chairman? If not, at this point, the chair would call for a vote. All those in favor of electing Charles Bunton as chairman and Miranda Bolden Frost as vice chairman, let it be known by saying aye.
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 And all opposed by a like sign. Outstanding. All right. Well, welcome to the club, guys.
And Chairman Sanders, I would just like to add in this process that I was honored to be able to serve, and I was both of these knew the chair and the vice chair. I couldn't be more pleased with our selection either. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you for your work in getting that done. That will kick in on October 1st. And so I'm sure Dr. Purcell will get both of you up to speed and briefed on where we need to be, and looking forward to it. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Purcell for the executive director's report.
Thank you, Chair Sanders. I wanted to give you an update really on funding, and then really talk about right sizing for institutions and sort of our status as we look forward to moving forward through this fiscal year and academic year. In June, we really talked about how we compare to other states. Since then, the State Higher Education Executive Officers Group has put down sort of a more interactive report, and I thought it had some things in there that are quite interesting. So this is basically what we reported last time, that our budget's fairly big, $2.6 billion in total revenue, and we serve 214,000 students at all our community colleges and universities. But when we compare each other to how we fund, you can sort of see that there are differences. For the United States, about 10%, 3.8, and 0.6% are from other sources, whereas all of our appropriations come from state funds, except for a hair for other sources. This is an important difference. When I worked in Arkansas, they basically had a compact with the local communities. The local communities would invest in buildings. The state would invest in academic offerings and things like that. And in other states, they also have things like a lottery and endowments. So in Louisiana and in Arkansas, they had a lottery for scholarships. As you know, there's a lot of states that have that. Also endowments, when Louisiana started doing a lot of oil leases in the Gulf, they actually endowed the revenue from those to do support for higher education. So there's a lot of funds that come back year after year based on a one-time investment and putting that money away. So anyway, Alabama is at 6,001 in educational appropriations, and that's at 73% of the U.S. average. It looks fairly low. Educational appropriations per FTE since 1980, and this is one of the new things about the data, is it goes back a generation, which is basically, this is the period of time that I worked in higher ed. So what you'll see here is that we had two occasions where we were actually above the national average, and that was back in 1986. George Wallace was governor, and in 2008, Governor Riley. And in both those situations, we were doing great, and every time since then, we've always been trying to, as we move forward our budget, say we just want to get back to 2008 levels, and that's important for us. the scary part is that we're actually at 5.4% below where we were funded in 1980 from state support. Comparing Alabama to the nation during that period of time, we end up with Alabama actually being higher in tuition. We've increased tuition 4.4% on average since 1980 every year. So we are 1.7 times above the national average in tuition revenue, which has repercussions as we have students that have greater student debt, and that debt is actually paid over their first 10, 15 years of adult working life, and that money goes out of the state and doesn't help produce things. So this is something that we need to think about as we move forward. But all is not bad, but we have to think about this in a more holistic percentage. Educational appropriations were down 5.4% as indicated, and nationally they actually are down also. So we're not too bad, but remember we were behind the national for all the times except for 2 years. But notice net tuition revenue. Since 1980, the change has gone up 409%, which seems a little gaudy for a higher ed. And nationally, it only went up 201%. To me, this is something somewhat problematic that we have to address. And if we think about it, our revenue is at 95% change increase compared to just only 37% nationally. So we need to address the fact that our families and our students are paying a bigger share of that. Well, during the summer, there was a lot of discussion about what are we going to do in the fall? What if things don't go well? The good news is we've actually got people back on campus. Things are doing well. Our preliminary enrollment report will be out next week. I've had a peek at that. It actually looks better than all of us had imagined. In fact, some of my conversations with the campuses was about this topic. How do you right size an institution managing their growth or strategic retrenchment? The good news is most of our institutions are sort of right at as they were last year. Some are down some, but not at a significant amount. And so we'll have more details on that next week, but that's helpful. It's still a time to sort of do some thinking because a lot of things have hit higher ed. There's a perfect storm out there that's reshaping higher education. So imagine our institutions and boom, COVID-19 hits. For about 25 years, we've had a decrease in federal, state, and local support. A lot of changes in innovation we have to address. And then, of course, our demography has changed. Everything in blue, light blue, or super light blue in Alabama has a declined enrollment. So if you are recruiting from those areas, it's problematic, and we have to rethink our business model. And then even those that are contributing to our economy by having students from out of state come and pay double or triple, the states in blue are losing enrollment. And of course, like University of Alabama gets a lot of folks from up north, and notice how blue that area is in the decline of enrollment. As we said at our last meeting, underlying financial conditions can cause complications similar to all of us who are dealing with the coronavirus. And that last year we had a situation where even in the fall, before the coronavirus, 6 in 10 colleges missed their fall enrollment goals nationally. And so we have to think about how all this change is going to impact our institutions and what we should do with our budget. So how do campuses respond? And I'm just going to give some suggestions to the campuses that are on the line and help you all as we prepare to think about approving a budget in the fall. I'd say the first step is really to rethink about what is mission critical. This is sort of what we do at home when we have financial matters that require us to tighten our belts. You know, what matters and what doesn't. I'm reminded of Viktor Frankl. He said, be not so concerned with the how, but on the why. For once you know the why, the how shall surely come. And that is the search for meaning. That is a search for our life mission. And institutions need to do that and be reminded of that. So is our current mission in fact a mission? A lot of institutions sort of wander beyond their missions. Some actually go into totally different directions. Or is the current mission just survival? And is that a valid mission? What can we do to help? What I would suggest is that we look about how we would change our institution even before COVID-19. What would make it better? And are there activities as the institution participates in? They're really good things, but really, are they mission critical? And do they need to be reconsidered? One way to do this, and this is sort of these parlor games that we do in higher ed as we get together in large groups, or at least we used to back in the day. And we talk about what is important. And the activity that we did at some campuses over the years is say, what is mission critical, and have people put Post-it notes as close to the center of a big circle. And that would be things that we would say is perfectly mission critical. And then things that are not so close, kind of okay, but then things that are outlandish or way out yonder would be a negative number. And then that would help you understand what things should be considered for rethinking or removal as we try to better our ship and keep us going in the right direction. The second step would be to really, after we've really talked about the principles and the ideas, is to let's actually look at the math. And a lot of campuses don't. And in some states where I worked, the state had enough information where we would show a lot of this data publicly. So it sort of compelled the institutions to really think in this kind of depth. In this state, we don't share that much detailed information, so it's up to the campuses to do this. But it's all important to look at the facts. And some important things that are important during this pandemic is to look at your long-term debt and sources for payments. As you know, we had residence halls. All of them have mortgages, or a good chunk of them, and how we're going to pay them back if we're only at half occupancy. Do our student support services have a revenue stream that's sustainable, and are they really focused on what the mission of this institution is about? Academic program viability. Are our academic programs at a size producing enough graduates that make them viable from an academic perspective, as well from a financial viability perspective? And then auxiliary revenues, which is actually the great difficulty right now for our campuses. I think that their enrollments are going to be okay or close, but they're going to lose revenue from bookstores and cafeterias and residence halls, and that's going to put a big drain on their overall system. And then the question is about reserve funds. Usually institutions will take their leftover money that they have in a year and scarf that little bit away and stack it up. The scary part is when I talked to campuses behind the scenes, there were some that barely had enough money to continue, and they would have to actually borrow to do cash flow and other things like that, where there were other institutions that were very frugal. I have one institution that has at least double of what their operating budget is in reserves, which is actually very impressive and maybe excessive. But we have to think about making sure our institutions do think thoughtfully about having a rainy day fund themselves. The other one is employee information. Know what that is. A lot of institutions have already begun doing furloughs for some areas, or early retirements. And there is a way to do that without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and they need to be thoughtful. If you just say everybody who wants to retire and don't have a whole lot of criteria on that, you may end up with all the great employees who actually have other employment opportunities nearby, wandering off to the next institution, to a private institution near them, and then having a situation where those that don't have a place to go staying. The other thing you have is if you furlough or let young employees go, then you don't have the right mix. So you have a lot of long-term issues later with retirement pensions and deferred compensation kind of things that you have to sort of pay out at the end. So those things have to be thought about as you think about strategy for right-sizing your institutional budgets. Look at things in trends so that they can see about what things are connected. And like I said earlier, look for where you're serving your current population and maybe rethink that. As you can see, Huntsville is on fire. It's a real popular place. Auburn area, of course, too. So those are areas where we've got lots of high school students and a lot of growth and opportunity for recruiting. And I'll give you an example why this is important. We have a lot of regional institutions in the state. This is an example in Louisiana, where all the regions pretty much did a pretty good job of educating their own communities, and that sort of happens throughout the country. But here's a region in Louisiana that everybody wandered off, and it really wasn't good for that local economy, and it certainly wasn't good for the stability of that particular institution. So what is it about the operations at this particular institution that kept it from being a good steward of the local people's education skills and helping them build the local workforce compared to these other regions? And they had to do a lot of rethinking of what they were doing to make it successful. The other thing institutions need to do is look about how are they actually spending their money. And this is a a list of actually Alabama universities. And you have a couple universities that are only spending about a third of their student expenditure budget on instruction. So is that a good focus? Does that make sense to us? Normally, I would think something around 50% is ideal. And then we have some institutions that are spending it all on libraries and academic support kind of things. Is 26% appropriate? And it might be for a particular institution, but they really need to rethink how they compare and how their operations are different. And then here's two institutions that have very high levels of student support. Are their institutions, students particularly needy compared to others? Or is there just an overemphasis in this area that may not need to be the case as we move forward? And then institutional support, this is a higher ed term for administration. And here's an institution that has a third of their budget going toward administrators. So now we sort of understand why they don't have as much in instruction as they have to pay for the guys in the ties and young ladies with the pearls and all that kind of stuff. And then of course you have scholarships. And if you have to have 1 in 5, 20% of your budget to buy your students in, is that a good business model and is it sustainable over time? And I will say that in other states, we actually had institutions that over scholarshiped and it ended up ruining their ability to be financed in the long run. The other thing they can do is really look at facility utilization. And here's a campus in another state that only used 42% of their classrooms. Can you imagine having buildings, having mortgages, and having half of your buildings not done? And then, of course, in addition to that, they had a lot of classes that didn't have but 32% of the classes full, or even 12%. And they had one particular class, which was huge, had 95 students size, and their average enrollment in that class was 31. You can't really have a positive revenue and economic outlook if you're not taking care of the pennies that add up to big expenses for your campus. The other thing is we have a lot more people wanting to do online. If you're offering a lot of classes and you want to have them beamed out, if you do it all during the day, it may not get to everybody. So are you going to need to increase the number of offerings you have at different times or asynchronously through online experiences? Now, another fun thing to do, all of us are talking about parlor games here, is to think about the life cycle of all of our activities on our campus. And this is from the MBA guys. And as you know, MBAs are heartless business folks who make a career in crushing the thoughts and dreams of organizations. But some of those things are appropriate to apply to higher education business model. Remember we talked about the DART game and what was mission critical? We had things that were very perfectly one, so everything above this line would be something that makes money, that is mission critical. Everything below would be something that isn't. And then this bottom line, effectiveness, is really about dollars. So if you lose a lot of money, you're a -1. If you lose money, you're a +1. So you have a life cycle for any project that you have in life. And the business, the MBA guys would call them dogs. These are the startup costs, the things that drag on one's business. And you always have to have these things when we're politically more pleasant. And when I go to a campus, we talk about poor performers or beginners. Then we have an organization programs that actually are mission critical, but they still cost. They're like a problem child, or sort of like teenagers. You can sort of see they're adults, but they just ain't got it all right. They're still a problem, not only because we have to fund their car payments and their car wrecks, but for other reasons. And then finally, they become stars. They're actually are mission critical. They're real important. They're popular. Everybody wants to go to school with these programs. And that's the ideal place to be for a program, is to have it right here. And you can actually map institutions and show where they are. So here's a star. This is what you're pushing for. And then you have these older projects, which basically were invested. They sort of went through the whole cycle. You don't have to invest them anymore, and they make lots of money for the institutions, but they may not be something that's out on the radar for the public. This is the cycle. And if we don't monitor this cycle, then we end up getting out to kilter. So here's an example of an institution that I actually worked with a jillion years ago, 25 years ago. So what you have is government and sociology, great rising star, or actually a star. Everybody loved it. Everybody came to that college for these type programs, but look how few of them were really popular. Yes, these were popular, but they certainly weren't self-sustaining. And then you had a lot of programs that were just sort of sitting out there making money. But look at all the dogs. Look at all the ones that weren't making money. So what you can do is concentrate on these, the ones that need a little help. In this case, we took early child education, middle grades, and saw that maybe what if we reinvent this? And what we did is we combined those two programs, which made for organizational efficiency. And we created a program called Early Child and Middle Grades. So when someone graduated, they actually got a credential for both early child and middle grades, and it made them more marketable. So there are things we can do. Today, board members, you will see an institution that is rethinking some academic programs and repackaging it in a slightly different way, which is an example of how to do this. So when building a new plan, decide on the priorities, decide on easy reductions, and really discuss athletic collateral damage to any change. And as you may have heard in athletics, if you try to close an athletic program, there is political damage that happens with you if you're a college president. Otherwise, sometimes you can survive and sometimes you don't. We even actually had a community college try to close some programs recently, and that president got a little heat and he wandered off fairly soon thereafter. And there's other, situations. Program closings, does it matter? In Louisiana, we closed the French program in Louisiana at LSU. That did not go well, but everybody spoke French in Louisiana, and it was a program that was really losing a lot of money. New locations, thinking about retirements, furloughs, and staffs. So the bottom line is there is a specific fix for every institution. And I want to say to the academic guys and the campus leaders, y'all did a great job this summer. The fact that you are all able to come back with enrollment numbers that are even close to what is out there was impressive. You did have to pivot and make some changes, so I'm impressed with that. If you're interested in some other ideas and improving things, we'll be glad to help you look at the data in different ways to make it helpful. It's really when the institution veers from its purpose that it becomes more susceptible to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Shakespeare would say. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to send it over to you and to introduce our discussion items.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Next, we have the results of the COVID Student Impact Survey. And so Dr. Robin McGill will have that.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You can advance the slide. There we go, one more even. Okay, so this survey, there we go. A COVID Student Impact Survey was a project that AIC led along with partners at the Mobile Area Education Foundation. They've got a talent hub down in Mobile that MAF leads. And we braided some funding with their talent hub funding and our Lumina Equity Leadership. I think it was a $50,000 grant from the Lumina Foundation, and we took a small portion of that to help support this study to understand students' experiences of the pandemic, specifically those students who were enrolled in the spring and looking to come back in the fall. So we created a survey based on some models that are out there from other organizations, but we wanted to get a sense of what specifically Alabama students were experiencing rather than assuming that the national trends applied across our state. So we contacted our higher ed partners, many of whom are on this call, and we had 16 institutions, 2 and 4 years, take us up on participating in the survey. So they sent out emails and texts to their student body between June 15th and June 30th. So, prior to making campus decisions about how they were going to reopen, but after the spring semester had finished. And so please do keep that in mind as some of the results, they happened in June, so that will inform some of what you see there. We're so impressed that we had over 11,000 responses to the survey, which is certainly more than the national surveys get. And our overall response rate was about 14%. So there were about 81,000 students who got the survey, and we got 11,000 back. So here were our participating partners. We had a higher uptake among our 4-year institutions. and some among our two-year institutions. So thank you all for for distributing. As I mentioned, it was a pretty short survey. We administered it through Google Forms. So this was, responsive platform students could complete on their cell phones if they needed to. And the first thing we asked them was about some basic demographics to get a sense of who these students are and how representative they are of the overall body. So you can see here that a third of the students are those students living on campus. The others are commuting, so they may be residential but living off campus or commuting from their parents' homes. In terms of enrollment status, we're very heavy represented among full-time students, which is not fully representative of the student population in Alabama, especially among community colleges who may see more part-time students. Okay. Another important factor to keep in mind is that almost 3/4 of the respondents had very high GPAs between 3.0 and 4.0. So our respondents are primarily full-time students who are performing, have an A to B average. So again, just keep that in mind as you think about the representativeness. So continuing with thinking about our different communities that the students are based in, we had almost 50% suburban, and then to a lesser extent rural and urban. We also had some distribution by household income, and you can see that of those students who answered, there is more weighting toward the lower end of the income spectrum. Okay, in terms of demographics of race ethnicity, the response rate was more or less on par with the overall population of the state of Alabama, meaning that the 57% of respondents were white, 30% were Black, which is very close to what we have as a state, and then smaller numbers of responses from those in other race ethnic categories. Okay, so getting to the meat of what we found, we've heard a lot in the press about, whether students are able to access their coursework online, do they have devices, do they have internet? And so we wanted to find out what their experience really was. And in asking them what kind of internet connection they have, we found that over 50% of the students did have high-speed internet at home, and that's what you see there on the right side of the screen, broadband. Some students said they had internet, but they weren't sure what it was. Students obviously could pick multiple responses here, which is why it adds up to over 100%. And there were, a small number of students who said they didn't have an internet connection at all at home. Okay, so this is the same question, but we broke it down by race ethnicity. And in looking at that tall orange bar, so you probably have a hard time reading the tiny text at the bottom of the screen, but the tall orange bars are the ones that are broadband access. So looking at those across the race ethnicity spectrum, we see that Black respondents were less likely to report having access to broadband. And then when you look at the very short dark green bars, those are, I don't have an internet connection at all at home. So we were pleased to see in general that, it was below 10% across all populations who didn't have internet access at all at home, but it was higher among Black respondents who said they didn't have internet access. In fact, twice as high as the next nearest group. Okay, so shifting to another question, we asked the students about their ability to fulfill their obligations for coursework. So nearly 60% of students, so if you look all the way over to the right of this slide, you see 58.5% of students said they were able to attend classes and complete their assignments, which is great to hear. But then you think of those 48 or 42% of students who weren't able to to select that response. And those students may select other factors that prevented them from attending classes. And of those other factors, financial hardship was the most frequent, work disruptions next, and then unreliable internet access or no internet access. So even among those folks who did have access to broadband or an internet connection over their cell phone, they may not have been able to stream their coursework or some other complication. Okay, and if you could hit it one more time, it'll give us a couple of things to focus on here. There you go, and one more. All right, so technology access, we asked students what sort of devices they have. And we found that over 90% of students had both a smartphone and a laptop among the respondents. Now, granted, these are the full-time, 3.0 and higher students, but they're telling us that 9 students out of 10 have access to both of those technology resources. And then we wanted to find out what might students need to feel comfortable or prepared to come back in the fall in terms of student supports. And 70% of students, of course, they could select more than one of these. That's why the percentages add up to over 100. But 7 out of 10 students said flexible financial aid was something that would really help them come back. And that makes sense given the previous response that, COVID financial hardship was the biggest factor that impacted students who couldn't attend classes. So I know that many of our institutions, probably everyone, received those flexible student financial aid CARES funds, and there may be other funds that institutions have, but what we saw was that students are really looking for access to those funds in a transparent way. In terms of health measures, so specifically around their comfort, that they were healthy and safe on campus. We got, students obviously could pick more than one of these, but none of the responses got more than 50%, which in some ways it makes sense given what we've seen of reopening of campuses, in-person instruction, that students, are wearing their masks and observing physical distancing. But what we saw here was that students are just less concerned about COVID preventative measures than we might have expected. I'll say my hypothesis for this was that maybe 3/4 of students would be more concerned about health measures, but less than 50% were. Okay, so the last thing was based on some of the results of the survey that I've just talked through. Our partners, so AIC along with the Mobile Area Education Foundation, realized that we probably, that it would be helpful to our student services colleagues at universities, especially those who participated in the survey, to give them some additional resources that may help their students. So one thing I didn't touch on a previous slide was that showed students were having challenges with basic needs. So aside from flexible financial aid, there was a third of students who indicated they needed support with food or housing or toiletries or some other basic needs. So that kind of kicked off the idea of reaching out to the Hunger Solutions Institute at Auburn University. They're leading a statewide coalition of institutions around preventing hunger on campus and ending child hunger through the state. And so between the three of us, we have put on a series of webinars which have been recorded. So we're certainly happy to share out the links with anyone who wasn't able to attend or is interested in attending around getting SNAP access for your students and what the channels for that might be if you haven't broadened that service. There are also food resources in many of the counties that your institutions are in. And the food resources guides that the Hunger Solutions Institute puts together certainly welcomes being able to put institutional food resources into their guide. We also showed some of the preliminary results of this survey. And then given the attention around broadband access, we asked our colleagues from the Alabama Department of Economic and Community Affairs, the DECA, to come and talk about the broadband access programs that they have, which I guess last week included vouchers for low-income K-12 students to receive internet hookups in their residence. So, so with that, I'll hand it back to Chairman Sanders.
Thank you, Dr. McGill. I appreciate that report. All right, we will move on now to our decision items. First will be the fiscal year 2020-2021 operations plan, and recognize Veronica Harris.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to present to you today our FY21 operation plan. The commission has 31 programs and we have 5 appropriation units. This year, FY21, we will have 2 new programs, Birmingham Promise Scholarship Program and AKEEP, Education and Teacher Recruitment Partnership. Now, there was a 4.3% decrease from last year. And I'll tell you on the next slide why. We had to submit this operation plan because it was due July the 31st, but any changes that you make today, we can revise it with an operation plan revision after October 1. Here you will see all of the appropriations, all our funds by appropriation units. You'll see the different appropriation units and the amount that was budget FY20, as well as what was passed for FY21, and you will see the difference. And one of the reasons why we had a decrease, we had 3 new local funds that we had for FY20, Credential Engine, Equity Leadership, and Quality Assurance. That was just for 1 year, it was the grant for 1 year. So that total of $300,000 won't be in our FY21. Also, you can see that we did get some increases. We got a $500,000 increase for the Alabama Student Assistance Program, as well as for the Alabama Student Grant Program. And the new program, the Birmingham Promise Scholarship Program, there is a $750,000 increase there as well. Continuing on with our appropriation units, you can see that we did get an increase for a Resource Conservation and Development Program, also Soil and Water, but we got a decrease in Humanity Foundation of $80,000. We had a supplemental for FY20, Best and Brightest STEM Pilot Program, and that program was supplemental for this year, but it's not in our FY21 budget. But the biggest amount is the $4 million that we got for deferred maintenance program in this current year, but we will not have that funded in next year. Here, just give you a clearer picture of exactly the appropriation unit that I just explained to you. Of those appropriation units, 49.2% of it is for student assistance. So this just tells you by the appropriation unit where most of the money is going. This is our major object codes by all funds that equates to the $39,826,260 that was appropriated for FY21. Again, you can see that the grants, benefits, and claims line has the largest portion of 34 million of the 39. So it's 87% of the budget. And this just showing you that the 87% and the 13% is for operation. This is our operation and maintenance only, what we normally call our O&M. This particular program is the umbrella for the Commission on Higher Education. So this is just breaking down the major object codes for operation and maintenance. Here you can see a further breakdown of our operation and maintenance and show exactly where the expenditures go. But keep in mind that in our personnel costs, there are several employees that are planning on retiring. So we do have quite a bit of termination costs in our personnel costs. And again, this is the umbrella that takes care of the 31 programs that AIC administers. Are there any questions? The staff does recommend that you approve the operation plan.
All right, that sounds great. Do I have a motion to approve the operations plan?
So moved.
And do I have a second? And I think Commissioner Kennedy, who I had tapped to make my seconds, is actually on the Resource Conservation and Development Board, and so he will abstain from this one. So I'll need somebody else to make the second, if you would, please.
Second.
Excellent. Any further questions, any issues I need to address? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed by a like sign. Okay, it carries. And Jacinta, if you'll register that Commissioner Kennedy abstained from the vote. All right, next, approval of the 2021 meeting schedule. Tim Vick.
Good morning. This item can be found on page 11 of your packet. On the screen, you can see the proposed dates for the 2021 commission meetings. They're March 12th, June 11th, September 10th, and December 10th. When we put this schedule together for your consideration, we took the following factors into account. The commission is required by law to meet every 3 months, so once a quarter. A meeting is necessary in December to adopt the consolidated budget recommendation, and the proposed schedule attempts to avoid most state and federal holidays. All these dates are Fridays, and we recommend them for your approval.
Thank you, Tim. Do I have a motion to approve the submitted schedule?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further questions or issues? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed by like sign. And the meeting schedule is approved. Next, the public drawing to determine the order of payment of Alabama Student Grant Program funds for 2020 and 2021 academic year. And recognize Cheryl Newton.
Good morning.
Morning.
In accordance to the Budget Management Act, Section 41-19-1, Code of Alabama, 1975, the State Department of Finance reviews each agency operation plan to ensure that appropriations have been made for the planned purpose and will not be exhausted before the end of the fiscal year. Therefore, departments are required to distribute appropriations equally among the 4 quarters. With this concept, the quarterly appropriated amounts for the Alabama Student Grant Program are insufficient to disperse to all institutions. As the funds become available, the order in which institutions will receive their fall disbursement is determined by a random and public drawing from first drawn, first paid, to last drawn, last paid. Institutions' spring disbursement will be in reverse order from drawn first paid to first drawn, last paid. The purpose of this drawing is to determine the order in which the fall grants will be dispersed to the 13 participating institutions. This box contains sealed envelopes with each institution's name. Mr. Vick will draw each envelope one at a time, and Ms. Cable will open and announce the name of the institution to determine the order today.
Make sure we shuffle these properly.
Stillman College. Stillman College. Oakwood University. Oakwood University. Judson College. Judson College. Stanford University. Stanford University. Spring Hill University College. Spring Hill College. Birmingham Southern College. Birmingham Southern College. Amridge University. Amridge University. South University. South University. Miles College. Miles College. University of Mobile. University of Mobile. U.S. Sports Academy. U.S. Sports Academy. Huntington College. Huntington College. And what? Faulkner University. Faulkner University. Staff recommends approval of the order determined.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Do I have a motion to approve the order of payments as read by Ms. Newton?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Do I have any further questions or issues? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed by like sign. And it is approved. Thank you. My apologies to Commissioners Kennedy and Sermon, because that's usually one of the highlights of the September meeting, is letting the new members serve as the lottery board and drawing those things out of the hat. So maybe next year. All right, moving on to our academic programs. First up will be Bishop State Community College, Associate of Applied Science and Respiratory Care Therapist. I recognize Dr. McGill.
Okay, so this program and also the next one are two allied health programs that Bishop State Community College is developing in partnership with the University of South Alabama, which, as you all know, has the hospital facility. USA has recommended that they develop the program so that there are more technicians that can support the growing healthcare industry and demands in the Gulf Coast region. USA has donated equipment for both programs so that they can defray some of the startup costs. As we all know from the COVID crisis, respiratory care therapists are in more demand than ever. This particular field does require licensure for entry-level employment. And so you'll notice that in addition to the standard new enrollment and graduate requirements for this program, we've added a third post-implementation condition, which requires the program's graduates to 85% of them to earn licensure and therefore be able to enter into employment in the field. Based on the accreditation standards for the Commission on Accreditation for Respiratory Care, this program has 76 credits, and Bishop State is projecting an enrollment of 10.5 students per year and producing 8.5 students per year. Staff recommends approval for this program.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, there being a motion and a second, is there any further discussion, questions for Bishop State? All right, if not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed by like sign. And the program is approved. Next, Bishop State Community College Associate of Applied Science and Medical Laboratory Technician, Dr. McGill.
Yes, so this program, like I had mentioned, is similar to the others in its allied health facilities, but this field, unlike respiratory therapy, does not require licensure for entry-level employment. So we have not placed a post-implementation condition for licensure. There are 70 credits required for this AAS degree, and Bishop State is projecting similar figures for enrollment and graduates in this program. And this program, like the previous, did receive donations from USA and also came with letters of support from employers in the area, including hospitals, infirmaries, and also the university itself. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any further questions or issues for Bishop State or Dr. McGill? Not all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 And all opposed by like sign. And the program is approved. Next up is the University of Alabama Doctor of Education in Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. McGill.
Yes, so this program, and you'll see that there is a similar program that we are going to talk about after this one for a PhD in Curriculum and Instruction. So it might be helpful to talk about these as a sort of package. So currently, the University of Alabama has 4 doctoral degree programs that are within the sphere of curriculum instruction. They have an Ed.D. in elementary ed and another Ed.D. in secondary ed. They also have a PhD in elementary ed and a PhD in secondary ed. So they are proposing to consolidate those 4 existing programs down to 2. They do have other PhD programs in education and also Ed.D. programs in education that are not under review as part of this consolidation. So in talking about the EDD or Ed.D. program, the 2 existing Ed.Ds, one in elementary and one in secondary, would be combined into a curriculum and instruction doctor of education, and students would be able to choose whether or not to specialize in elementary or secondary or some other content area like reading specialist, something like that. So the Ed.D. In comparison with the PhD is a scholarly practitioner doctorate, and we'll hear more about the research focus of the PhD in a minute. And the University of Alabama's curriculum department has over 21 faculty and 80 support faculty, so they're really very strong in this particular area. The credit hours for the Ed.D. are about 80 or 84, including 12 in a dissertation. They're projecting no new resources, a new enrollment of 4.5 students a year, and graduates of 3.75, which exceeds the minimum of 2.25 for doctoral programs. So staff is recommending approval.
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Chairman Sanders, I have a question. Are we voting on one program here, or are we voting on them together?
Dr. McGill, you still have some stuff to present on the PhD program?
I do, yes.
So this vote will simply be for the EDD program. So do I have a motion to approve just the EDD program first?
Thank you.
Motion approved.
All right, and do I have a second?
Good.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further questions? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed by like sign. And the motion and the program is approved. All right, Dr. McGill, Doctor of Philosophy in Curriculum and Instruction.
Yeah, so like I said, these are part of a overall consolidation. Again, this is bringing the PhD in elementary ed along with the PhD in secondary education into one degree in PhD in Curriculum and Instruction. Compared with the EdD, it requires 102 credits to complete, and there are double the number of dissertation research hours and also increased program core to support the research function of this degree. There will be no new resources required, and UA is projecting a new enrollment of 5.7 students and graduates per year of 5.25 students. Staff is recommending approval of the new program.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Have any further questions or issues? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed by like sign. All right, the program is approved. Next is the University of North Alabama Bachelor of Fine Arts in Cinematic Arts and Theater. Dr.
Okay,
McGill.
so this degree is also a reconfiguration of existing offerings. I'm sure you saw in your review that there are a number of dramatic arts and theater programs throughout the state, including already at the University of North Alabama. There is a BA in theater and a track within the communication arts degree for cinematic arts. So this new program would combine those two existing tracks and would also replace them with this new BFA program, Bachelor of Fine Arts in Cinematic Arts and Theater. UNA is showing a strong enrollment in those existing programs, so they feel confident that this will meet the viability. They've projected new enrollments over and above existing students of 12 and 7.5 graduates per year. There are some additional startup costs related to achieving accreditation through the National Association of Schools and Theater, which NAST, you see that there, include facilities, equipment, and also accreditation costs. Students will be able to, or will have to choose one of 3 tracks for the program, which are acting for stage and screen, production, design, and technology, that's the second one, and the third is film production. Staff is recommending approval for this reconfigured degree.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second? Got a second? No. Paul, I got a second on that?
Yes, second. Sorry.
No, I couldn't hear you. So that's it. I got a motion and a second. Do I have any further questions or issues? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed by like sign. And the program is approved. Next, University of South Alabama, Bachelor of Science in Recreational Therapy. Dr. McGill.
So the University of South Alabama has got an existing program in sport management and recreation studies, which they intend to continue. But one of the concentrations within that degree is for therapeutic recreation, which has been heavily enrolled, and the institution is proposing to bring that concentration forward as a standalone degree. Because of that, we've advised an extra post-implementation condition that the existing program in sport management and recreation studies must also maintain its viability, along with the new program needing to achieve its graduation and enrollment figures. USA is projecting a new enrollment of 10 students per year and 8.8 graduates per year, which is above that minimum of 7.5. And the students who are in the program will be eligible to sit for the professional certification exam as certified therapeutic recreation specialists. That certification is not required for entry-level employment, so we have not made it a post-implementation condition, but it certainly adds to the strength of the program. Staff is recommending approval of the new program.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Do we have any further questions or issues? All right, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 And all opposed by like sign. And the program is approved. Next, University of West Alabama Bachelor of Science in Human Performance Comprehensive. Dr. McGill.
So this program proposal from the University of West Alabama is intended to give students an option to continue their studies in human performance in a more flexible way. So currently the University of West Alabama has 4 related majors, which are athletic training, exercise science, physical education, and sport management. The institution has found that every year, 10 students or around that number have decided that they wanted an interdisciplinary degree that combines elements of 2 or more of those fields of study. And in order to do that, they're currently pursuing BS or BA in interdisciplinary studies, which is a much more general degree than is reflected within their actual course of study. So the university is proposing a more flexible human performance concentration or a human performance comprehensive degree that would allow students to combine 2 of the existing concentrations or portions of degree programs into 21 credit packages and bring those together as a major that would much more closely reflect their interest in training when they seek employment. So staff is recommending approval of this degree program.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, there. Any further questions or issues? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed by a like sign. And the program is approved. Next, Athens State University, Master of Science in Strategic Leadership and Business Analytics.
Okay, so I would like to start off by recognizing that this is the first master's degree program that Athens State has brought forward since they became a master's level institution, which was approved by AIC earlier this year. This proposal for a master's in strategic leadership and business analytics is coming out of their College of Business. You'll see that the program includes an embedded certificate from the National Society of Leadership and Success, which is a portion of that coursework. And then other coursework deals with analytics for leadership in business. The other sort of closest related degree program is at the University of Alabama at Huntsville, so also up in that northern part of the state, in management science with a concentration in business analytics. But in comparing the 2 programs, the UAH program is much more focused on business analytics than it is on leadership, and so it doesn't seem that there is a duplication issue. The program also has some similarities to MBA programs that exist throughout the state, but it is much more focused on organizational leadership than it is on a general education in business. The Athens State can largely deliver this degree with its existing faculty, although it does have some resources set aside for adjunct faculty should the program grow. It's going to be delivered 80% online, and you'll see that there is a much more significant enrollment projected for part-time students. So they're really aiming this at working professionals who want to get that master's degree and move up in their careers. Athens State is projecting a new enrollment per year of 12.7 students, producing 9.3 graduates per year, which exceeds the minimum viability of 3.75. And staff is recommending approval of this program.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second? You got a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, any further questions, issues? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed by like sign. And the program's approved. Next, Auburn University, Masters of Science in Brewing Science and Operations.
Okay, so some of you who've been on the commission for a little bit longer may remember that Auburn brought forth a graduate certificate in brewing science in 2014. That was, or still is, an 18-hour graduate certificate. This proposed master's degree would expand, well, maintain that current 18 hours of coursework and expand with additional coursework, bringing credits to 33 hours for the master's degree. Auburn does project additional costs for hiring a primary faculty member who would also serve as the program director, teaching, but also organizing and recruiting students and helping them with their practical placements. The degree includes 120 hours of industry practicum. So that would be embedded in some sort of craft brewery or other brewing distribution operation. There has been a dramatic increase in the number of craft breweries and operation facilities in this state and also throughout the country. And we should highlight that in our review of other similar programs, we were only able to find certificates. So to our knowledge, this would be the first of its kind program in the region that brings forward a full master's degree in brewing science. Employment and student demand is certainly attested to by the very strong employment numbers for graduates from Auburn's existing certificate program. And so staff is recommending approval, and if approved, the program would be implemented in January of 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All right, there being a motion and a second. Any further questions or issues? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 And all opposed by like sign. And the program is approved. Next, Auburn University Bachelor of Landscape Architecture.
Okay. Well, Auburn University, within their College of Architecture, already has a Master's of Landscape Architecture, but they do not have a corresponding bachelor's level degree. Students who are at the bachelor's level have two options for pursuing a degree that leads to the master's, which are a BS in Environmental Design and a BS in Landscape Horticulture, which is also in partnership with the School of Agriculture. And students can take coursework through a 5th year to get their master's. So Auburn is now proposing bachelor's because they found that many students wanted to get that bachelor's level certification and start working in the field without having to go forward to their master's. And the state, we participate in a common market program that allows students from Alabama to go out of state to seek studies that are not available in the state, and the Bachelor of Landscape Architecture has been one of those programs where Alabama has been exporting students to other states. So having the program in-state will certainly allow us to retain those students and fulfill existing demand. Because this is related to degree programs that Auburn already offers, we and Auburn do expect there to be, at the beginning, a modest decrease in enrollment in those existing programs as students move into the BLA program. So we have placed an additional post-implementation requirement on the program for maintaining viability in the existing Master of Landscape Architecture in case students decide just to go into industry with the bachelor. And also the Bachelor of Science in Environmental Design, which is the main feeder for that MLA program. There is licensure in the field of landscape architecture, as I mentioned, but entry-level employment in the field does not require licensure, so we haven't placed that condition on it. And Auburn is expecting potentially to add additional faculty if the program takes off. They are looking at new enrollments of 18 students a year and 12 graduates per year. And staff is recommending approval of this program.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 And all opposed by a like sign. And the program is approved. Next, we have a request to amend a post-implementation condition from Alabama State University on the Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering. Dr. McGill.
Yeah, so the Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering at ASU was one of the kind of last handful of programs that was approved with a 5-year implementation period. Currently, we approve with a 7-year post-implementation period. This program also had a year delay in getting started. So it's only been up and running for 4 years. And the figures that came in for enrollments show a strong enrollment above what was initially predicted. And then
Good, how are you?
got to put yourself on mute, somebody. There we go. Okay, so the enrollment figures are very strong, but the graduates, because this program was launched in the spring, the post-implementation report didn't initially include the graduates from the spring. So this past spring, ASU graduated 5 students who were not included in the average graduate number. So when you add those in, you get average graduates over 2 years of 3 students. So it's still not at the level it needs to be, but given the number of students who are in the pipeline, as attested by the enrollment, we believe that within 3 years, ASU will be able to show full viability for this program. Staff is recommending approval for an extension of 2 years. Commissioner Sanders, if you're talking, you're on mute.
I apologize. Do I have a motion to approve the request to amend?
So moved.
Okay, and do I have a second? All right, there'll be a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed by like sign. All right, and request to amend is approved. Finally, we have the information items. It has been traditional for us, just since these are just simply reports being submitted, to take all the information items up in a single motion to receive and approve. Do I have a motion to receive them collectively?
So moved.
All right, and do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any other issues or questions with any of the specific items? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 And all opposed by a like sign. All right, it is approved and received. There's no further business to deal with on the agenda. Folks, I appreciate everybody's cooperation, and just as an outgoing word as chairman, I appreciate all the support and encouragement that this commission has given me over the last couple of years. And I look forward to seeing Chairman Bunton and Vice Chairman Bolden Frost going forward, doing their work. When I first came onto this board, it was a little disorienting, but seemed like we had a lot of rollover and in and out, but the level of engagement over the years as I've been on this board longer among the commissioners that are here has really been encouraging, and it is going to be a challenging time for our colleges and universities, and I appreciate the work that you continue to do, and I look forward to the work that this commission will continue to do along with our excellent staff. So if there's nothing else, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.